Thank you for tuning in to Guns Forever Productions. When you're out shooting, please wear safety glasses and earplugs to help protect yourself against any flying debris or any failing parts of the gun. Please remember to shoot safe and enjoy watching, enjoy shooting, teach others to shoot. Alright, welcome to Guns Forever Productions, and we're starting the first shop video of the Mosin Nagant series called Project Mosin. And I don't know if you're sharp-eyed enough to notice, but this is actually a different 9130. Jason wanted to do a build on his, so we're going to use his. Everything I said in the last video still applies. They're the same gun, just different. But this video we're going to be replacing the rear sight with a sight rail. This one here is different from a lot of sight rails you'll see, is this one actually presses on instead of clamping on. You see some cheap ones out there like this one here that somebody decided to take and remarket for Mosin use. It has the clamps here, as you can see, and it just sits on like that, clamps onto the beaver tail that is molded into the barrel. And every time you shoot, the screws get looser and looser because they were designed for air guns and not Mosin Nagants. So the best way to do it is a press-on rail. So we're going to get started, and in order to do the rear sight removal, and this one's already had the sights removed, and Jason ran into this as well, is he couldn't get the rear sight off. And a lot of these Mosins actually had this rear sight soldered on underneath there, so just beating it with a rubber hammer is not going to get it off. So we have to use what I call the hot wrench. Get her nice and warm, get that solder soft, and it should come right off. It still takes a fair amount of effort, but we'll get to that in a minute. There's two pins, here and here. And I don't know if Jason's behind the camera, so you'll notice it moving from time to time. So I say hi, Jason.
Hi.
All right. And he's already got these pins driven out, so he's got the easy part of the battle done. But in order to get this the rest of the way off, we have to take it out of the stock. And yeah, we'll get started on this. First off, you have to take these rings that they have here off, and somebody put this one on backwards. The taper's the other way around. And some come off easily, some come off really stiffly. Well, actually, I should say, first off, from the safety perspective, you want to make sure your gun is cleared and not loaded. So it's cleared and not loaded. I made sure. So you get these rings off. It's a real treat. Go to my handy dandy toolbox, find me a screwdriver. Some of these, as I said, do not come off easily. And when we get around to putting the aftermarket stock on, we're actually going to have to permanently remove these. And at that point, they're going to get a little deformed a little bit, but a little bit of creativity, they're salvageable. So there's the top half off. This thing's really clean. You must have cleaned the cosmoline out of this.
I never have myself.
Oh. Cleaning rod. Now, if I remember right, oh, so close. The rear, there it goes. The rear ring will slip right off. The front one you actually have to spread and take over top of the barrel, and that's a treat. That'll be a project that we actually cut away from the sound and everything and make it happen in about super fast speed. So next step is you take the bolt out just simply by pulling the trigger and pulling it out, And then you have the 2 screws in the stock here. There's one here, and there's one up and underneath here. And those hold the rest of the gun together and in the stock. Really simple system. Soldier serviceable in the field, if you ever needed to service them. But there's one. And 2. And you have that, and while we're at it, we're just going to tear this thing all the way apart. Why not? Show you a little bit of the anatomy. If I can get this open. Ouch. There we go. Some magazine follower. That part right there was actually the design of the magazine follower was courtesy of Mr. Mosin, I believe. No, it was Nagant. Nagant. This was the only part of the gun that he designed. So there we are. There's the wood stock. We'll set that off to the side, and we might not actually put it back in there because we're going to end up putting it in an aftermarket stock anyway. So that's the bare guts of the Mosin. A little bit of rust pitting that's been repainted there, but not too bad. So anyway, we're gonna, when you take these sights off, you always want to hit them forward, because well, you can't go backwards. The bevel of the barrel actually doesn't permit the sight to come all the way off. But you don't ever want to leave this down. You don't want to hit on this part, because if you ever put it back on, you'll really screw the sight up. So you want to get right on this lip right in here, where it looks like you've done a little bit of convincing on your own.
With no prevail.
No prevail, yeah. So what I use is a rubber dead blow mallet. It's a really convincing hit, but it's non-marring. So if you ever do put it back on, and a punch that is marring, just in case that doesn't do the trick. So whenever you use stuff like torches, power tools, or punches and hammers and stuff like that, you always want to wear safety glasses to keep any flying shards and stuff out of your eyes. That make a gun project not very fun. Having to go to the emergency room and peel metal shards out of your eye and be ugly. Be blind, and you have to start shooting left-handed because your right eye is no longer any good. And I need new safety glasses. These are pretty scratched up. But here we go. I was hoping my fan over there wasn't going to blow my torch out. It doesn't take much heat. You just need to get it hot enough to melt the solder. One thing you need to keep in mind is this piece right in here is actually spring steel. So if you get spring steel too hot, it can actually deform and it won't work right. So I usually heat the sides and a little bit around the barrel. You don't need to worry too much about getting it too hot because guns get hot, but you don't want it cherry red. You get it cherry red, you deform your barrel and you have all kinds of problems. But probably ought to be wearing gloves too. This is going to get hot. I'm gonna. Since all the glove I have is my tack gloves, we'll use those. Glad it's not 100 degrees out because the shop's not air conditioned, and a torch on a 100-degree day, not a pleasant experience. You have to be really careful. If you have a lot of oil, you could possibly set the oil on fire, and that's not a good thing either. It wouldn't hurt to have like a glass of water or a water bottle sitting by somewhere I missed. You have to use the punch. Another thing you have to be careful of is when you're hitting this, the rail does protrude above the barrel. So you want to make sure that you're not actually hitting the rail or that beaver tail that's molded onto the barrel, because you'll just piss yourself off. And sitting there beating on the thing all night long and you'll never get it to move. So at this point we might find some pretty music and a fast forward button to make this go really fast. And my better hammer. Usually that rubber mallet works, but if you're going through a punch, I mean, you need something that's got a little bit more of a shock. After some pretty serious convincing, we got the sight off, just to find out that silver solder that I was talking about, when they made this rifle, they apparently had plenty to spare. There was a lot of solder on here. If you look at the top of this gun, Jason, if you could zoom in on the top of this, all that silver is solder. Just 3/4 of that rail is covered in solder, and I've never seen one with that much. So that sight wasn't coming off, but we made it earn it. At this point, before you put the style of rail that we're putting on actually drives back on a lot like the old sight came off. It has the beaver tails in the bottom here. And before we can put this on, we actually need to go through here and file all of this solder off. They say to use a file. We'll start with a file, see how it goes, and if I get bored I might jump onto the rotary tool. But the file gives you more control over what you're doing, and solder is generally soft enough that it should come off pretty quick. But you want to make sure that you don't alter the shape of the beaver tail, because that can adversely affect your rail. But you just want to take it down to the metal. You don't want to take any metal off. And if you're really stingy, you probably could save that, because that's silver. Even though precious metal prices right now suck. But that's neither here nor there, not part of our shop. So, but you want to get, there's solder not only on top of the rail, but it's actually in the ridges as well. So you want to make sure to get all that off. Wow. Thank you, Mr. Stalin's regime, for having a lot of solder on hand. They had plenty of it. Hey, can you toss me that t-shirt? White t-shirt? Thank you. Best shop rag in the market. It's cheap, free, you wear them out. It just means you don't wear them anymore. That means they land in the shop. Your wife says, "Why are you wearing that holy t-shirt?" You have a place for it. All right, well, I think we're down to the point of putting this on. Now inside here there are 3 set screws and you want to make sure those are all the way up. So this is as smooth and flush as you can get it. So those screws aren't going to hold up on here.
Actually, I believe, isn't there 3 under those 3?
No, it's all one piece. Nope, those are 3 individual set screws. But this rail is really cool. It's actually made by a local company, Precision Prototype and Machine in over there, Orange City. Yep, and it's a one-piece aluminum rail that is actually a see-through rail, and you can see it's a really deep rail here. And on the back side it has a notch that actually reinstalls an iron sight underneath your scope. So if you have a red dot or low light conditions and you can't see through your scope, you still have an iron sight capability. But it's a really good idea, really nice quality machine piece. But it just sits on, goes on there. It's already halfway on the rail. And get dirty with it a little bit. I might have to back my screws off a little further. Not that one. I've got a whole pile of Allen wrenches in here that comes with different rails. And they're all different sizes because some of these rails use metric screws and some of them use standard screws, and you never tell the difference. And I'm betting these are probably going to be standard, but like a brilliant individual, I'm starting with the metric sizes. Yep. All right. Bet's on 1/16 of an inch. Good. I don't have any money to bet with. All right. In this step, you definitely want to use the rubber mallet so you're not marring your new sight. Yeah, Jason's being smart alecky with me and he's correcting me, and yes, apparently according to the destruction sheet there are 2 set screws in each hole. Which I stand corrected. I'm a big enough man to admit when I've been wrong, unless I'm right, and which is usually right. Smart idea though, because the top set screw will go down and push on the bottom one and
essentially double nut it.
lock it on, yeah. Still doesn't go any easier. But now we know. Getting there, almost there. You want to make sure that you get it on far enough to cover your entire beaver tail rail. Not so much for support purposes, but if you have the rail sticking out there, it looks kind of halfway done. Might be about all we're going to get out of that one. We boogered up that rail pretty, or that beaver tail pretty good when we were getting that sight off. I'm calling it. That's where it sits. So then you take and tighten down those 3 set screws that are in there, and that will, being as it, it went on so hard, it still needs the set screws, but some people will take those screws out and Loctite them in, and I would recommend that once you get it set to where you want it. But being as it's got the double screw, I don't see it as being a huge necessity. And you put your other screws back in. And there's the rail installed. Looks a lot better than those cheesy clamp-on ones that you see that you get for 10 bucks a piece. This is a pretty pricey rail. Part plus shipping, I think we got it for 50 bucks. Something like that, yeah. So, it's a little pricier, and if you want to put it in percentage of the cost of the rifle, you're almost 50% of the cost of the rifle just for the rail. But if you're going to put a rail on a gun with this much recoil, you want a good one. And you want one that's not going to just fall off. And that's a problem that I've had with these clamp-on ones. Is I put one of these on a rifle that I custom built before I found this, and the guy's been having problems with the rail actually falling off the gun while he's shooting it. So you want to stay away from that. But before we get the rest of the gun put together here, we're going to do a quick little show and tell of the scope that's going to go on this. And it's not a high dollar scope, but it's a brand that I really like because for the dollars they make a really nice quality product. But it's an NC Star sporting scope. It's a 2.5 by 30 scout scope, and it's illuminated reticle. I believe it's just a standard crosshair. Yep. But it's a long eye relief, so you can mount it way up here and still be able to see through the full range of the viewfinder. So I'm really excited to get this scope mounted on. This is one I haven't used before, but I've used this brand and had really good luck with them. And for the cost, I don't know, what was this, 35, 40 bucks?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. I mean, they're really cheap, but their quality is amazing for the money. A great little scope.
50 or 55.
Oh yeah, well, the illuminated reticle probably adds some in. But it comes with the scope rings, just standard rings, cleaning cloth. This one being illuminated came with an extra battery, and it comes with the caps. So
and I believe it said that it was made for the Ruger gun sight scout rifle.
The gun sight scout rifle?
Yeah, which is chambered in 308, so it should handle this recoil.
It should, yeah. I haven't had a problem with any of these actually handling the high recoil. It's always been the rail that I've had problems with. So, and I'm really excited to get this one mounted up, and we'll see how it goes. And I think we'll probably leave this video at this stage, being as the next step is putting it in the new stock. Or do we want to do that all in one shot?
I don't. Oh, yeah.
Well, anyway, Thanks for watching Guns Forever Productions. This has been part 1, rail mounting on the Project Mosin. We'll see you next go round for the Archangel stock like this one here that we're going to be putting on. And we'll see you later. Thanks for watching and subscribe.